Hello students. In the last lecture, we have started with the Partnership Act and we have done the meaning and introduction to the Act, the meaning of the partnership, the nature and essential features of the partnership. Today we are going to talk about the different types of partners and the rights and duties of the partners. In this chapter, we will discuss the admission of a partner when a new partner can be admitted into the existing partnership firm. Then we'll talk about different types of partners which can be there in a partnership firm. Then we'll talk about the rights and duties of the partners, and lastly about the retirement and death of partner. Starting with the admission of a partner. So admission of partner means the introduction of a new partner in the existing partnership firm. So whenever the firm requires some additional capital or managerial help, or for both, or for the expansion of its business, a new partner may be admitted to supplement its existing resources. So sometimes a partnership firm may at some later stage require some new partner for the purposes of the additional capital, additional managerial help, or for the expansion of its business. So for that matter, they can admit or they can introduce a new partner to the existing partnership firm. According to the Partnership Act of 1932, a new partner can be admitted into the firm only with the consent of all the existing partners unless otherwise agreed upon. So just like there are articles of association for a company, similarly all the provisions with regards to the partnership firm, they are mentioned in the partnership deed. So unless and until partnership deed provides something else, the new partner can be admitted only with the consent of all the existing partners. Unless and until all the existing partners they give consent, new partner cannot be admitted to the existing partnership firm. With the admission of a new partner, the partnership firm is reconstituted and a new agreement is entered into to carry on the businesses of the firm. Now, I'm talking about one fact repeatedly, that a partnership firm is the result of the contract in between the partners. So, partnership firm is created as a result of the contract between the partners. So, if a new partner has to be admitted, that means a new contract has to be created. So, for admitting a new partner into the firm, the old agreement has to be done away with and a new agreement is entered into between the new partners. So, with the admission of the new partner, the old partnership firm is ended and a new partnership firm is created. So, that means the partnership firm is reconstituted and a new agreement is formed in between all the partners, the existing one and the new ones, to carry on the business of the firm. For the right to acquire share in the assets and profits of the partnership firm, the partner brings in an agreed amount of the capital, either in cash or kind. So, whenever a person becomes a partner, he has the right to have a share in the profits and losses of the concern. So, in order to have a share in the profits and assets of the partnership firm, the partner will bring in new capital or agreed amount of capital into the firm, whether it is in cash or in kind. Moreover, in case of established firm, the new partner is also required to contribute some additional amount in terms of premium or goodwill. Now, sometimes a firm is very established one, it has a good goodwill or reputation in the market. Now, for in order to introduce a new person into that partnership firm, so that new person has to pay some premium to become a member or a partner of that partnership firm. So that is the additional price that he pays in order to be a partner of that firm, which is for the goodwill of that partnership firm. So that is the additional price which he pays in addition to the capital contribution, and that additional price is called as a premium or the goodwill, which he pays in order to become a partner of an established firm. Admission of a new partner require various adjustments in profit sharing ratio, partners' capitals, and adjustment of goodwill, etc. So whenever a new partner is admitted, the entire partnership firm is reconstituted, a new partnership deed or partnership agreement is created between all the partners. So it requires adjustments in the profit sharing ratio, because when new partner is admitted, the old partners they have to sacrifice some of their profits and accommodate for the new partner. So now new partner will also share in the profits and losses of the concern. Then it would also lead to changes in the portion of the capital of all the partners in the total capital of the firm, then adjustments in the goodwill and so on. Now the next very important heading under this chapter is the types of partners. So there could be a number of different types of partners which could exist in a partnership firm. They could be an active partner, dormant partner, nominal partner, partner by estoppel, outgoing partner, incoming partner, sub-partner, partner in profits only, and lastly, minor as a partner. Now we'll discuss about all these types of partners in detail one by one. The first type of partner is the active partner. So by active, we basically mean the person who takes an active interest in the affairs of the business. So a partner who takes active part in the conduct of the business of the partnership firm is called as an active partner. This partner is liable to third parties for all the acts of the firm. Now, active partner is the one who is considered as the face of the partnership firm. So he is answerable and liable to all the third parties for any acts of the partnership firm. So for any kind of contract between the partnership firm and the outsiders, the active partner will be wholly solely liable. Subsequent incompetency of active partner justifies the dissolution of firm. Now, if that active partner who basically takes part in the conduct of the business, he turns insolvent. Now, a person who turns insolvent is incompetent to enter into the contract. So, when he becomes incompetent, then he's not eligible to be a partner. So, such kind of ineligibility on his part to become a partner justifies the dissolution of the firm. So, firm can be dissolved on this basis that the active partner has become insolvent. Lastly, this active partner is required to give public notice of his retirement. So as I've told you that he is the face of the firm. So once he retires, he has to give a public notice that this type of partner, active partner, or this particular person is retiring from the partnership firm. The second type is the dormant partner. So dormant is the opposite of active. So dormant basically means a passive partner or a sleeping partner. So a partner who does not attend the affairs of the firm or who does not take a part in the active conduct of the business of the firm is called as the dormant partner. So the such kind of partner is just very passive partner. He doesn't take active part in the affairs of the business. He just supplies capital to the firm and other partners carry on the business. So dormant partner is the sleeping partner. He just supplies the capital. That is the basic condition to become a partner, and takes share in the profits, but it doesn't take an active participation in the business of the firm. Usually, the identity of the dormant partner is not disclosed, but he is equally liable for the acts of the firm in the same way as an active partner. So, a dormant partner is basically admitted into the partnership firm, maybe for the purpose of completing the legal formalities as regards to minimum number of members, or maybe his financial help is required. So, he may be admitted for some legal reasons. So, that is why his identity is usually not disclosed to the outsiders, because he is just admitted for the purposes of obtaining capital from him, okay, or to fulfill the minimum number of partner criteria in a partnership firm. But he is equally liable for the acts of the partnership firm as like other partners. The subsequent incompetency of dormant partner is not a valid reason for the dissolution of firm. So if a dormant partner becomes insolvent, so on this basis, the firm cannot be dissolved or it cannot be wind up. Lastly, he is not required to give public notice of his retirement. So obviously, when his identity is not disclosed, people don't know him, so it's not required to give any public notice that he is going to retire from the partnership firm. Third type of partner is the nominal partner. So by nominal, we basically mean by namesake. That means when a person is just admitted for the heck of its name and not for any other purpose. So partner is called as a nominal partner if he does not attend the affairs of the firm. That means he doesn't take part in the business of the firm. He doesn't supply any capital to the firm. And if he doesn't supply in any capital, he doesn't have any share in the profits and losses of the firm as well. But the only purpose of admitting such partner is to use his name for promoting the business of the firm. So basically, sometimes the firms, in order to have the credibility, they would like to admit some person of the high status and high credibility into their firm as a partner, so that it helps in increasing the goodwill or the reputation of that firm. So such a person doesn't take part in the business affairs, he doesn't supply any capital to the firm, and also he doesn't obviously have a share in the profits and losses. But basically, this is one of the main essential condition that whenever the person becomes a partner, he has a share in the profits and losses. So basically, a negligible amount of the share in the profits is given to such kind of partner in order to comply with the legal formalities of being a partner. So the persons of high status and credibility are requested to lend their name to the firm, resulting in the image building. So usually when some people they write some research papers or books, they would like to collaborate with their guides or with their mentors who have high credibility or high status in the market. So it helps in building the image, although that a mentor have not contributed anything for that publication, but their name is of paramount importance and which gives a good status to their publication. So this is the same criteria in the nominal partner, that such kind of partner has a high status and credibility, and in order to use their name, the partnership firm can request them so that they can lend their name to the firm and admit as a partner. He is liable to third parties for all the acts of the firm. So since he becomes a partner, so obviously all the legal formalities or provisions with regards to partner will apply, and is liable to the third parties for all the acts of the firm. And such a partner is also required to give public notice of his retirement, because also he is one of the person seeing whom the people would like to transact with the partnership firm. So whenever such person retire from that firm, he is required to give the public notice of the same. Another category is the partner by estoppel or holding out. So this word estoppel or holding out we have already studied in Sales of Goods Act as well as the Contract Act. So by partner by estoppel or holding out mean anyone who by words, spoken or written, or by conduct represents himself to be a partner in a firm is liable as a partner in that firm to anyone who has on the faith of any such representation given credit to the firm. So if a person he purports himself in the front of anyone that he is a partner of the firm, either expressly or impliedly. So if on the basis of his representation, the other person to whom he has represented, he has given some loan or some amount to the firm on the faith of that particular person. So that person, although he is not a partner of the firm, but now he is liable as a partner in that firm to that person on the faith of any such representation given credit to the firm. So such a partner is called as partner by estoppel or holding out. So if A says to B that I am a partner of this particular firm, so although he is not, so B on the basis of this representation has given credit to that firm of whom he has admitted to be a partner. So in that case, the A will be liable for all his acts or for such kind of transaction to B by representing that he is a partner in that particular firm, because on the faith of A, B has given loan to the partnership firm. So such a partner A will be called in this case as partner by estoppel or holding out. Next type of partner is the outgoing partner. So outgoing means a partner who is leaving the firm. So when an existing partner retires from the firm, he is called as an outgoing partner. He may be a retiring partner or a deceased partner, an expelled partner, or a partner who leaves the firm on insolvency. So when a partner leaves the firm, he becomes an outgoing partner. He may leave on account of retirement, death, on account of expulsion, or insolvency. Incoming partner. Incoming partner means the partner who is joining the existing partnership firm. So when a new partner is admitted in an existing firm, the person so admitted is called as an incoming partner. The admission of new partner results in the dissolution of the existing partnership, which we have already done. That when a new partner is admitted, the existing partnership deed or agreement is dissolved, the existing partnership firm is dissolved, and a new partnership firm is created, that is called as reconstitution of partnership firm. So the new firm constituted after the admission of the new partner is called as reconstituted firm. Next type is the subpartner. When a partner agrees that some outsider shall be entitled to the whole or some part of the share of profits or property, such outsider is called as subpartner. So, for example, when A, B, C, three partners are there in a particular partnership firm, and of them, C says that whatever profits I will get, I will give half of those profits to D. So in that case, D will be called as a sub-partner. So such person, that is D, is called a sub-partner, and he will just be entitled to his share of the profit, and he has no other rights and obligations in the partnership firm. He will not have any kind of legal rights and obligations of a partner. He just have one right, that is, he is entitled to have 50% of the share of the profit which C is going to get from the firm. So ABC will be three partners, and of them C agrees that he will give half of his profits to D. So D has only this right that he can claim half of the profits which are entitled to C. So other than this, he has no rights and obligations of being a partner. A sub-partner has no rights and duties of a partner and is excluded while counting the total number of the partners of the firm. Another type is the partner in profits only. Now, usually whenever a partnership firm is created, the partners bring in some capital, and in turn they have a share in the profits and losses and property of the company. Partnership firm. So usually the partners they have a share in the profits as well as share in the losses. But since partnership deed is just an agreement between the partners, so partners can agree anything amongst themselves unless and until it doesn't violate any legal provisions. So sometimes the partners they may agree amongst themselves that one or more of the partners from among them they will have just share in the profits and they will not share in the losses of the firm. Such a partner will be called as partner in profits only. But this is just a matter of internal management among the partners and it does not any way hamper the rights of the third parties. So this is just the internal management of the firm, that how they are going to share their profits and losses, and it doesn't in any way affect the rights of the third parties. So if any third party has some amount due against the firm, it can get that amount due also from the partner in profits only. So uh, this type of arrangement, it doesn't affect any kind of right of the third party. Third parties have the right to enforce the contract against any of the partners. Last is the minor as a partner. So usually as per Indian Contract Act, the minor is not a competent person. So he's not competent to enter into any kind of agreement or contract. So as per that rule, a minor is not competent of becoming a partner in a partnership firm. But as per Indian Partnership Act of 1932, person can be or a minor can be admitted as a partner, but with the consent of all the partners and for the benefits of the partnership firm. Okay. So a minor can be admitted as a partner if all the existing partners agree to the same, and also such a minor will be admitted only for the benefits of the partnership and not for the losses of the partnership firm. Now, what about the position of a minor partner? So minor partner is admitted only for the benefits of partnership. So he can be admitted only for the benefits and not for the losses of partnership. Second, rights and liabilities of minor. The minor has a right to have a share in the profit and to have a share in the property, and but not have a share in the losses. And he has a right that he can demand the books of accounts at any time. And regarding his liability, the liability of minor is limited. So unlike other partners whose liabilities are unlimited, the liability of the minor will be limited. Next is option on attaining majority. Now when the minor attains majority, he has an option to whether he wants to continue as a partner or not. So if he want to discontinue, he can just not sign the agreement. But if you want to continue, then all the on attaining majority, all the provisions which are regarding to a partner will apply on him equally once he attains the majority. Now we'll talk about the various rights and duties of the partners. Now, Section 11 of the Indian Partnership Act states a number of rights which are given to the partners, whereas Section 9 and 10 they contains duties by which all the partners have to abide by. So first of all, we'll talk about the rights of partners. So rights of partners are given in Section 11 on the Indian Partnership Act 1932. As per that act, partners have a number of rights which are right to take part in the conduct of business. So the partners they have a right that they can take active participation in the business affairs of the partnership firm. Next, right to be consulted. So every partner has a right to be consulted and to be heard on any matter concerning the business of the firm. So if any difference arises in between the opinion, so the decision can be taken on the basis of majority. but basically every partner has a right to be heard and to be consulted on all the matters. So there are some matters on which the consent of all the partners is required. For example, the admission of a minor partner. For that matter, the consent of all the partners is required. So unless and until all the partners agree, a minor cannot be admitted as a partner. So partners have the right to be consulted. Next, right to have access to the books of the firm. So every partner, they have a right to access and to inspect the any copy of the books or accounts of the firm. So this right is available to basically both active as well as dormant partners. So this right is available even to the minor partner as well. Next is right to share in right to have a share in profits. So obviously, when the partners they bring in capital, uh, they have the basic right that they must have the share in the profits and losses and property of the firm. So every partner has a right to have a share in profit. Usually, there is an agreement to the same that in what ratio the partners will share the profits. But in case of absence of any agreement or partnership deal, the profits will be shared equally between all the partners. Next is right to interest on capital and advances. So generally, no interest on the capital which is given by partners is to be given, because on giving the capital, the partners they get share in the profits of the firm. But if the partners give capital which is beyond the minimum capital required or beyond their share, so in that case they usually get interest on their capital or such kind of advances which are given by them, which is at the rate of 6% per annum. Next is right to indemnity. Now, a partner is called as an agent of the partnership firm. So, a partner, while acting on the behalf of the firm, may make certain payments on their behalf and may also incur some liabilities. So, the partnership firm shall indemnify the partner in respect of the payments made by them or any liabilities incurred by them in the conduct of the ordinary course of the business or in any kind of emergency. Like while protecting their business firm from losses, they might have expended from their personal funds. So whenever they have expended from their personal funds for the conduct of the business, then such partners they can claim the amount back from the partnership firm. Next is right of partners after expiry of the firm. Now, if a firm uh, continues to work even after the expiry of its term, the right of the partners will remain the same as it was before the expiry of the term. So, like sometimes a partnership firm is created for certain purpose or for certain period, and even after that period, the firm still continues. The rights of the partners will be same as they were before the expiry of the term. Other rights are the right as an agent of the firm. So, as I've told you that the partner is an agent of the firm. So he, for the purpose of the business of the firm, acts as the agent and works on the behalf of the firm. So he can bind other partner and the firm by such acts. So that is the right of the mutual agency, that every partner can bind every other partner for his acts. So whatever act a partner does, his acts bind the firm as well as the other partners. Then right in the emergency. A partner has the authority in the emergency to do all such acts for protecting the firm from the losses as it would have been done by any person of ordinary prudence in case of his own firm. So a partner has an authority that he can do any kind of such act in case of emergency to protect the interest of the firm from the losses. So he must act in such a way that it is his own firm and it is his own, he's the owner of the firm and he must act in that manner. Next is right to be consulted and consent on the admission of a new partner. So this we have already done, that whenever a new partner has to be admitted, the consent of all the partners is required. Otherwise, a new partner cannot be admitted. So every partner has this right for to him to be consulted and consented on the admission of a new partner, or we can say on the admission of a minor partner. Next is right to retire. Now, a partner has a right to retire. He can retire with the consent of all the other partners, or he can also retire by giving a notice to all other partners about his intention to retire, or in accordance with the express agreement between the partners. So, if a partner wants to retire, with the consent of all the partners, he can retire, or by giving a sufficient notice before at a sufficient time period, that he wants to retire. So by giving a notice period, he can also retire, or he can also retire through any kind of agreement. Like if, when the firm was created, it was an agreement that a particular partner will retire after 5 years. So he can also retire through or via that agreement. Next is right not to be expelled. So partner has a right not to be expelled from the firm by any majority of the partners. So partner, he has a right that he cannot be expelled by any simple majority. Next is last right is right to dissolve the firm. So usually, in case of partnership at will, the firm may be dissolved by giving requisite notice in writing to all the partners of his intention to dissolve the firm. So sometimes this we will also study in detail in the dissolution of the partnership firm. So one case we have done that when an active partner retires, or when an active partner becomes insolvent, then the partnership firm is dissolved. So such kind of active partner or any other type of the partner has a right to dissolve the firm. Now with the rights there comes the duties. So section 9 and 10 of the Partnership Act 1932 specify certain duties which all the partners have to abide by. So first is to carry on the business to the greatest common advantage. So every partner has to carry on the business of the firm to the common advantage of all the partners. So they must use their knowledge, skill and judgment for the benefit of the firm and not only for their individual benefits. Duty to be just and faithful to each other. So all the partners, they must fulfill the duty of honesty and good faith. They enter into partnership with the others on the basis of the mutual confidence and trust. So there is a kind of mutual agency between the partners. That means if any partner does an act, it will bind all other partners as well as the partnership firm. So whenever he is doing any act, he must be very much honest, just and faithful towards the other partners also. Then duty to render the true accounts. So rendering true accounts of the partnership firm is another duty on the partner. Every partner is bound to keep and render true and complete account of the partnership money with him. So if he is in the responsibility of making accounts, he must submit or furnish true and fair accounts to all other partners as well as to the general public. Then duty to render full information of all things affecting the firm. So every partner is an agent of the firm. So as per the law of agency, information to the agent is deemed to be the information to the principal. Hence, it makes it mandatory for every partner to pass on full information of all the things which are affecting him or fellow partners or the firm. So the partner must not conceal any material information which may affect or hamper the interest of other partners or the entire firm. Duty to indemnify for fraud. So the partner has committed any act which is against the legal provisions, and because of his act, other partners or the firm has suffered some kind of loss. So he is under the duty to indemnify, to compensate them for the loss occurred to them due to his fraud. Next is duty to be diligent. So every partner is bound to attend diligently, that means efficiently, to his duty. So he must perform his duty as if he is the owner of the business and his money is invested in the business. So if a partner is negligent in the performance of his duties, any kind of loss occurring to the firm or other partners, he is liable to bear the same. Next is duty to properly use the firm's property. So the property of the firm is only used for the businesses of the firm and not for the personal purposes of the partners. So that is why it is a duty of the partners to properly use the firm's property to the common business advantage and not for the personal advantage. Next duty is duty not to earn personal profits. So if the partner derives any personal profits for himself from the partnership firm, then obviously he must account for that profit and pay it back to the firm. So any partner is not allowed to make any secret or personal profit from the partnership firm's transactions, because such kind of profits, they belong to all the partners. The profits of the partnership firm belong to all the partners and they must be shared in between them. So any partner must not misappropriate the money and make personal profits. Other duty of the partner is duty not to compete with the business of the firm. So a partner must not carry on a business which is similar to the business of the firm. If it does so, he is accountable for the same and is liable to pay back all the profits which he has made from that business. So basically, if a particular person is a partner in a firm, he cannot start any competing business on his own name which is in competition to the existing partnership firm. He is, however, eligible to start any non-competing business on his own name and run that business, but he cannot start any competing business on his own name, which provides competition or detrimental to the interest of the partnership firm of whose he is a partner. Now, duty to be liable jointly and severally. So every partner is liable jointly with all the other partners and also severally to the third parties for all acts of the firm done while he is a partner. So, for example, there are two partners in a firm, A and B. Now, there is a third party who has to get rupees 10,000 from the partnership firm. Now, there are no funds in the firm, so the partners, they will pay from their own funds. So, the entire amount of 10,000 will be paid by A and B. Now, for example, if A and B share the profits equally, so obviously they will also pay in equal proportion. So, A and B will have to pay 5,000. So, the liability is separate, but it is also the joint liability because both of them have to pay together. Now, if for example, the third party enforce agreement only against one partner, that is A, so he takes the entire amount of 10,000 from A. So now this A has right to take the balance or the B's share of 5,000 from him. So that means the liability is also joint. So liabilities of the partners, they are several, joint, as well as unlimited. Next is duty not to assign his interest. So basically, no partner can transfer his interest in the partnership firm to any other person. That means you cannot make any other person as a partner in place of you unless and until all the members give consent to it. Okay. However, you can transfer your share of the profit to any other person without the consent of other partners, but you cannot admit a new partner in place of yourself without the consent of the other partners. Next is to act within the authority. So every partner is bound to act within the scope of the authority or power which is given to him. In case if any partner exceeds his authority, then he shall be personally liable for the same to compensate the firm for the loss caused to it by his such kind of act. Next is duty to work without remuneration. Now, our partners, they are usually the owners of the partnership firm. So, partner is not entitled to receive any kind of remuneration for taking part in the conduct of the business. They will just get a share of the profit. So, last is the duty to contribute to the losses. So, partners are bound to contribute equally to the losses sustained by the firm, irrespective of the amount of the capital contribution by each of them. So, since they have a share in the profits, a similar share they have to make in the losses as well. So, in case of losses, the partners they are bound to contribute equally or in any particular ratio, irrespective of the amount of the capital which they have contributed, because the liability is unlimited. So this was all about the types of partners and the rights and duties of partners. Any doubts and queries are welcomed. Thank you.